Well, hello everyone. My name is Zachary O'Shea, and this is Box of Teeth. Let's cover another horror-themed homebrew monster for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition right now. Here at the end of August, we're covering a horror-themed race that you can seed into your D&D game, whether as player characters or as a monstrous encounter that can be out there, or even both, and that would be the Brood. They are a cosmic horror and gothic horror inspired race that is fairly satyr-like. They do have horns that are curling around their ears, they do have hooves, but those horns and hooves and even their fingernails are made out of a black, shiny chitin, and they're covered in soft black fur as well. While they have goat faces and goat eyes, their legs are completely straight, just like any other human or elf or something to that effect. And they have a furrow that runs down their back that is filled with little red cilia that perhaps give them strange abilities and strange senses. The Brood believe that they are all descendants of the Dark Mother, basically Shub-Niggurath of the Lovecraftian mythos, and that she was trapped for a time, this Dark Mother. The other gods leached off her power to create the rest of the races. She broke free, birthed 1,000 firstborn, who then now populated all of the Brood before she was destroyed, even though she's dead but dreaming. Thus the Brood believe that they are related to everyone else, and they can also have children with any other humanoid. They just always come out as Brood. We're going to talk about today's monster, the Brood Brute, in a moment, but I want to touch on the other horror aspect of Brood that I haven't yet, which is gothic horror. The Brood themselves are compelling. They're alien and different, but they're very attractive. Their way of life is very nature-oriented. They tend to be chaotic and disruptive to society, and there's an appeal to that. They're bright, they're happy, they sing a lot, they have this unity that other races perhaps do not have in other societies, and it's very easy for folks to get sucked into that, despite the Brood's dark nature and almost demonic appearance. Those are some of the hallmarks of gothic horror that they touch on, especially if you have a Brood player character or a couple of player characters playing them. That kind of horror aspect and that fact that they are at odds with society and trying to change it to match their own religious ideals. All that said, let's go ahead and cover the Brood Brute. They are bulkier than the rest of their kin because they are built for battle. They ceaselessly train and work and fight one another, often headbutting themselves a lot. Their horns are thicker, especially at the front, and the chitin has actually grown down to cover their brow and their nose, that at a distance makes them look like they're wearing some sort of horned helmet, even though it's all just shell like a bug would have. They also don't wear a lot of clothing. They wear a loincloth and they wear bracers that are both thick leather, but often from different strange exotic creatures or aberrations and the like. Weapon-wise, besides their fists and their horns, all of them carry a large bone mace that is studded with gemstones. It's got a thicker head like a flanged mace on the top, but the bottom has a well-worked bell. When they're not fighting, they use this bell to aid the Brood choruses in the music that they produce. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Brood Brute statistics for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The Brood Brute is a challenge rating 6 medium humanoid of any alignment, but usually chaotic. They do have a low armor class, but a lot of hit points. They do have saving throw bonuses, some skills, they're resistant to psychic damage, they do have dark vision. Like any other Brood, they do have Anathema Bond, so they can use animal friendship and animal handling on aberrations and monstrosities as long as those creatures have an intelligence score of 3 or less. They do also have innate spellcasting, so they can cast Shillelagh, Animal Friendship, and Hex. But they also have Feral Regeneration. They do regain 10 hit points at the start of each of their turn, as long as they have at least 1 hit point. However, if they've not done at least 1 point of damage with one of their weapons, horns, fists, mace, to another creature, they do not regain those hit points at the start of their next turn. This is also one of the reasons why they often spar with one another. They might be pulling their punches, but they're still doing a little bit of damage so they can regenerate and recover their hit points. They're often covered with a lot of scars where fur is never going to grow again. Action-wise, they do multi-attack, so they can make 2 attacks every round. They have that heavy headbutt that does some damage, but also if a creature gets headbutted, it has to make a save or be incapacitated. And a large studded club that does a decent amount of bludgeoning damage. Lastly, they do have a reaction of Chime of the Spheres, so when a friendly Brood casts a spell within 30 feet of the Brood Brute, it can use its reaction to add +1 DC, or give advantage on a spell attack to that spell caster. It can't use this ability if it is silenced or if it isn't currently wielding its big club. Just because they're a Brood Brute, however, does not mean that they don't have a charismatic personality and kind of a magnetism to them, as well as the ability to attract lovers and the like, so they can be a fixture of Gothic horror as well, if you like. I'd love to hear how you'd use the Brood in your campaign down in the comments below. And as you can see, as we're going through the different monsters, they do synergize with each other very well. You can find all of the Brood, as well as hundreds other horror-themed monsters for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, all at boxofteeth.blogspot.com. If you're interested in the non-Dungeons & Dragons horror projects that I have, or the horror fiction that I write, that includes Circuit Breakers, which is a post-apocalyptic tale, kind of like Vampire D. You can find it over on Kinda. Vela updates every weekend. Well, you can go to www.zacharyoshay.com. As always, thank you for your time and your attention, and have a great weekend.